Good morning, fellow citizens of the galaxy. Well, every time Star Wars has some sort of news drop, the argument always seems to turn creative. It goes into writing, characters, direction. Today's news, it's a couple days old, but it doesn't point in my mind to a creative failure. It points to a structural failure. Star Wars understood restraint back then. Today, it's operating inside a streaming structure that it doesn't reward patience. It honestly, it punishes it. A couple articles I'd like to go over kind of to point this out a little bit, but the first one up, it's from the direct.com. Disney excludes major Star Wars sequel from 2026 release. Fans have spotted one Star Wars sequel missing from Disney's 2026 release slate. 2026 is shaping up to be a big year for the galaxy far, far away. Not only will the star-facing franchise return to theaters for the first time in over 6 years, with the release of Jon Favreau's Mandalorian and Grogu, but will also debut several Disney Plus series. Kind of goes through, talks a little bit about a couple of different series. Keep the Mandalorian and Grogu in your mind here. But Ahsoka Season 2 was conspicuously left off the list, leaving some to wonder if the long-awaited Star Wars sequel will be released next year or not. The only 3 Star Wars projects mentioned in the new release were The Mandalorian and Grogu, Maul Shadow Lord, and Star Wars Visions Presents The Ninth Jedi. One major Star Wars sequel, obviously, is missing from this. That's Ahsoka Season 2. We have some news on Ahsoka Season 2. We go a little further in here. It looks like Baylan Skoll is going to be played now by Rory McCann, which I think is a great change. I really liked Baylan. Honestly, my favorite character, truthfully, from the first season of Ahsoka. But what is the core problem right now? Why is Ahsoka missing? See, it's not canceled. It's simply missing from the schedule. We've got Grogu, we've got a couple others, but we don't have Ahsoka on there. Why? Part of that, I believe, is that there is a creative element here that Disney is doing just fine with. But there's a planning issue. And that's kind of where I want to critique a little bit. Creative problems, they show up in the reviews. Structural or planning, but structural problems, they show up in the schedules. So we have here, Ahsoka is not on the schedule. This is signaling that there is a structural problem within Disney. What is it? Why? Let's go over to another article. So this is IGN. This is actually the most recent, came out on the 29th of last year. Time's flying. Baby Yoda on the big screen, what to expect from Star Wars in 2026. 2025 proved to be a fairly quiet year for the Star Wars franchise, although it's hard to sniff at something as great as Andor Season 2. I personally didn't like Andor Season 2 all that much. I really enjoyed Andor Season 1. I loved the drawn out, the drama, the build up, a little bit of a slow burn. It brought me back a little bit to the OG years of Star Wars, where things were explained, but you have to fill in the gaps yourself. You have to wait a little bit. You have to let there be a build up. I really, really, really liked Andor season one, um, more than season two. But season two also then illustrates a little bit of this systemic structural problem that I'm alluding to. So the article goes on, 2026 promises to be a much more active year on the Star Wars front. Is it? Is it? What constitutes active here, right? What constitutes active? For one thing, we're finally getting a new live action Star Wars movie 7 years after The Rise of Skywalker landed in theaters. So what's being considered as a more active year is based on the scheduling of what Disney is seeing in the green, what they're seeing as making money, right? Are we losing subscribers? No? Cool, keep making that. And then we're seeing shows that are more along the lines of the core of Disney, more along the lines of a vision that George Lucas had. The execution, I would argue, is different, but they're moving away from that vision, and they're basically doing what all the other streaming services are doing. They are creating content and shoving it out, and then people consume, rinse, repeat. Produce content, consume, rinse, repeat. And so we're seeing a disconnect, a structural disconnect in the execution of these differing movies and TV shows and things that Disney are working on all of their projects. One massive indicator that there is a structural problem going on is we continually get these announcements, but very little traction. They've announced all sorts of trilogies and movies. There's the Rey trilogy, all of these different things, but yet there's no movement on them. They dangle this carrot to us, and we are supposed to then consume and accept and then move on. And what is going on is Disney is not realizing that they are on the edge of completely disaffecting an entire section of their fan base. And I would honestly say they're doing it, at least from the benefit of the doubt, they're doing it unwittingly. The contrast that we're seeing is that, you know, one project disappears quietly and another gets elevated. But why? Well, look at Mando and Grogu. Why? Well, like I said previously, creative issues they show up in the reviews. Structural issues show up in scheduling. What they have scheduled out is what is bringing them money. It's bringing them the subscribers, or so they think. So then they continually pump out this content. I watched. I'm not terribly impressed with the teaser from Mando and Grogu. I guess we'll see. But modern streaming, it clearly has a structural problem. We see this in Netflix, we see this in Paramount, we see this with HBO, we see this all throughout. That they've produced short seasons with minimal movement. Everything's backloaded into a finale that's supposed to retroactively justify everything. What did we just see? 4 seasons of Stranger Things. This massive buildup. And then the last season, a complete backloaded finale that is essentially made to justify everything previous. But yet the execution of that, in my opinion, fell flat on its face. What what Stranger Things absolutely awesome visually, and the story was really cool. Yeah, quite honestly, it was really cool. I didn't get into it for a while, but man, I honestly believe it's really good. But the execution of the finale, it fell short of what they were originally trying to create. And that's because there's a disconnect with these streaming platforms that they think the short seasons with the minimal movement and then rushing through the end is what we want. So the system that they've created, it reinforces itself. It literally is the tail wagging the dog. And as they're doing this, long-term trust and goodwill from fans, it's eroding. Where the metrics flow, that's where they set the orders. And they put us into these buckets of, well, honestly, into one bucket. And that's the core problem. There is way more to the fandom than just the subscribers. Moviegoers are different. The subscribers are different. The TV show consumers are different. The comic book consumers are different. George Lucas, he completely understood that there is a difference. And so he created different content, scheduled and structured differently for each of the fandom genres that existed. The system is rewarding itself through its own validation based on metrics that are actually incorrect. I know it's a pretty bold thing to say, but we have loads of evidence. It's everywhere. And the fans can feel it. Fans, they aren't reacting to ideology. They're reacting to instability. People can feel when a story is managed instead of built. And that's what's going on right now with Disney, is it's being managed instead of being built. Ahsoka isn't missing from 2026 because Disney is plan things out. No, they don't know what it is. They don't know what to do with it. It's missing because Disney doesn't know where it's to live. And so Disney, the issue isn't creative. It's a structural problem. If we continue to keep going down this road, the subscription model will end up completely destroying over almost 100 years of cinema, of storytelling. What we need back is storytelling.